Hi, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here for another PB&J card class. And today I'll be sharing another card featuring our transparent set called So Loved. And for this card, I'm doing something a little bit different. Instead of creating a scene, I decided to pop that adorable little cat up out of a die cut window. Now before I start, I'm just popping up here real quick the supplies I'll be using in creating this card, including the Copic colors used to color the cat. And I will put both of these supply lists up on screen at the very end of the video, so if you want to look at them in more detail, you can just hit pause at that time and check them out. To begin, I stamped this cat using Memento Tuxedo Black ink onto Neenah Solar White cardstock. I stamped this in a stamp positioning tool, so I was able to do multiple impressions to get a nice dark outline before I began my coloring. I'm coloring in this cat using Copic markers, and I'm just doing some very basic shading here. I started with a light brown going around the outer edges of the cat and a few touches on his tail. Then I'm actually adding a very light yellow right on top, feathering from the outer part of the cat in towards the center. And now I'm taking a colorless blender and just pushing the white areas on the cat, like on the very center of his tummy, toward those outer edges. And that helps smooth that transition from the brown and the yellow to the white on the cat. I'll also add a light touch of pink to his cheeks and his ears and add a little blending around that area. And just touch up a little bit more brown here in order to darken those shadows. I'll go back with the yellow and blend that. So for me, the coloring with the Copic markers sometimes is a matter of going dark to light and then back with light to dark again, until I'm just happy with the look. I am going to color the roses now, and mostly just looking here for some variation in color from dark to light. I'm starting with my darkest color, and then we'll move in and add my light. Because there's such a small area to cover, it really doesn't take very long to color these in, and you don't need to do too much blending either. I just love how he is holding these roses. It's such a fun cat to sort of pop up on your card, and that's why I decided with this one to add him to sort of a window element on the card, as if he's popping out with this gift for whoever you decide to give this card to. This would make a great Valentine's card. It would also be great for a wedding or an anniversary as well. Critter cards are sometimes really nice to make a masculine card for an anniversary or a love theme thinking of you, because they aren't, all roses and all flowers. When I was done coloring him, it was just very quick basic coloring. I did fussy cut him out, and I am just going around the outer edge of the entire design with a Memento marker in the color of Tuxedo Black, and also some Vintage Photo Distress ink using an ink blending tool and a foam pad. And this hides any imperfections in my cutting. Next, I was ready to begin working on my background, and I'll be using a beautiful sentiment from our Forever and Always stamp set, and also the layered flower and our antique frame to create a fun little window to pop this cat into. So I've laid out my design here, and I am ready to start doing some stamping onto this piece. So I'm positioning this into my MISTI. Now the piece that I am stamping on is a cut from watercolor paper, because I'm going to do some painting onto this. So I want to be sure that I'm able to, if I need to, do multiple impressions onto this paper, because it does have a little bit of texture. And I want to be sure to capture this very detailed sentiment. I'm holding down the frame element on the window there just for placement, so I know where to put the sentiment. I'm going to ink that with Versamark ink. And like I said, I'm going to stamp it a couple of times just to be sure that everything gets covered. I did rub the surface with an anti-static bag in order to prevent any stray pieces of embossing powder from sticking where they shouldn't be sticking. I'll sprinkle that with white embossing powder and then heat to set it. Just making sure everything is covered. And now I'm ready to do some painting. So you could also do distress inks or memento inks onto your background, but I wanted a really rich color, and sometimes it's just easier to get that by painting the background. I also wanted it to have a little bit of an artsy watercolor look. Since I wasn't doing a scene, I was just mainly doing a sentiment with a window. So I put a little distress re-inker, this is the color of Evergreen Bough, onto an ink palette, and I did wet my cardstock first with just water, and I'm just painting this color right over the background. Just a very fast way to get rich, intense color all over the background. And I will dry that with my heat gun to set it, and I'm going to add some other colors right on top. So next I'm adding peacock feathers. And you can see, because this is a transparent ink, you keep some of that beautiful watercolor look, but you can adjust the color and the darkness and intensity by putting more inks on top. One thing I find that's really fun to do with these frame die cuts, like the antique frame die cut from Penny Black that I'm using here, is when I first get the die, I like to cut all different sort of configurations and then keep them in an envelope, so when I go to make a card, I can just dig through and find something that will fit. So I already had this piece die cut that had that sort of rectangular window up at the top in my stash, and I knew it was perfect once I saw it and I had my cat colored that we did earlier in the video. So just another way to get more from your dies is to just have some pieces prepped ready to go, so that after you color your focal point images, you can really come together and make these backgrounds from things that are already ready to go. I did add a little cracked pistachio on top of the peacock feathers, and now I'm adding a little gathered twigs around the outer edge. I think this gave this kind of a vintage touch, and I thought that was kind of fun with the roses in the main image. And I like the mix of the elegant sentiment and the vintage look to the inking along with the critter stamp. So just because you're using a critter stamp doesn't mean that everything on the card has to be really cutesy. Now this is another element from that antique frame die cut, and I'm going to layer this right on top over that window, and it'll give it a really nice finished edge and just add more interest to this card because it isn't a scene. I just think that gives it just a really cool look. Now I'm just lightly tracing that window onto a piece of Nina Solar White cardstock for the back, and I'm going to add a little bit of inking. So I chose this color because it's just a really nice light pink. It's called Rose Madder. It's an archival ink, and I'm applying that with an ink blending tool and a foam pad. And I'm also going to put just a little bit of Fired Brick Distress ink on top, and then that will tie in really nicely to the colors that I use to color the roses. So I'll just grab that Fired Brick and just do that very lightly until we have a nice match. There you can see that with the cat popped in there. I put some foam squares onto the back of this piece, and I'm layering it onto the inked with the pink background. And now I will glue this frame border. And this layout would actually be really cute with any of the critters that are in this new transparent set called So Loved. You could definitely do them with different color schemes, but have them popping out of this window design. I do have some foam squares that I'll be putting on the back of the cat. And then to give a little more interest up there at the top, I decided to cut some small flowers and leaves. This layered flowered set is a really great set for doing that. And I am coloring them with Copic markers, so they are a nice match for the flowers that are in the bouquet that the cat is holding. So I'll get the leaves, and then I'll also get these tiny little flowers. I'm just using the smallest flowers from that die set. And this is another one that I like to have multiples cut and stored in the envelope with the dies, and then when I'm making a card, I can just reach for those, try them out, and if I like them, they're ready to go. Once I had all of those colored, I'm ready to sort of stick them coming out from the window. I'll add the leaves in here. Some of these I'll be adding flat to the panel with liquid adhesive, and some I'll be popping up using foam squares. Some will be within the frame, and like this flower is outside of the frame. And I also added a little variation to the color on the flowers. So one is darker, one is medium colored, and one is very light, blending into the background there. And to finish those off, I'll put a few self-adhesive pearls. I will mount this panel to a note card, and it will be ready to go. So here's another look at the finished card, and also a close-up look at that window element. I thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also connect with Penny Black on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, on our website and blog, and shop our online store. And I'll be sure to link all of those for you down in the YouTube description box below. And if you stay tuned, here's those supply lists that I promised. Happy stamping!